Shabbat Shalom. I'm a daughter of Yisrayl Abel Hawkins, and I would like to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. Please start finding your seats for Sabbath services.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm a daughter of Yisrael Abel Hawkins, and I'd like to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. Welcome to another exciting service. Please get your pen and paper ready to take notes. Please welcome the great priest of Yahweh.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated for a few announcements. Masks or veils are required at all times when you're in the sanctuary. Parents, please encourage your children who are attending classes to bring and wear their masks or veils as well. We want everyone to stay healthy. Attention young women in the House of Yahweh, ages 12 to 20. We will be having an event for you to come and enjoy Righteous Fellowship this Sabbath, 1/22/2022, from 5 to 6 p.m. in Meeting Room 1. Please bring your cups with you because we will be having refreshments. If you have any questions or need help with transportation, please call the South Office. We'll see you there. Please check the bulletin boards for the latest news on clean and unclean products. This Sabbath, enjoy your takeout dinner today at the Lamplight Cafeteria. For dinner, we'll be serving curried goat. For desserts, we have cake, ice cream, and okishodom. The cafeteria will close today at 2 p.m., and the concession stands will open. The evening meal will be pizza. The women's concession stand will be open from 2 to 5:30 p.m., except during women's workshops. The women's volunteer meals will be served in the concession stand. The men's concession stand will be open from 1:30 to 3:30, as well as from 5 to 6 p.m. The men's volunteer meals will be served at Abel's Kitchen from 5 to 5:30 p.m. That's all the announcements. If you all please stand, we'll have opening prayer shortly.
Please raise your hands for opening prayer. Heavenly Father Yahweh, this is Saint Recognition. Come to the Vatican to see Richard Hawkins. Come through our most honorable Yahshua Himself. Heavenly Father Yahweh, please bless the list of the speakers that will be speaking today. They'll get the nourishment that we need for our day-to-day basis. Please us kind to him, bullies and bruised and ours who suffering in the prisons. Please make us to speak sustenance to being your spirit family. Please not put the test and trials higher than we compare. Please allow the peace solution may go on to us safely. And access things to the Vatican's passion and was armed by Yahshua Himself. Oh yeah, I praise you.
Heavenly Father Yahweh, this is your servant, Kohan David Hawkins, requesting permission to come before you in prayer at this time. I'm a seed of your last day's witness, the great and honorable Kohan Yisrayl Abel Hawkins, in unity and under the authority of the body of priests of the house of Yahweh and through our great and honorable high priest Yahshua. Heavenly Father Yahweh, as the smoke of this incense arises here in the sanctuary of the Great House of Yahweh, your established work in these last days, it arises with our prayers of thanksgiving to you, Father Yahweh, for calling us out of this sin-sick world. It arises with our prayers here at Abelin, the city of Yisrayl, and the prayers of all those whom you are calling out of this world, opening their minds to understanding your perfection of your 613 laws, your righteousness, the words of the prophets. These people you're calling out of the sin-sick world from the four corners, from all over around this earth. And we thank you for the message going out as you prophesied through your prophet Daniel, that knowledge would increase in these last days, and this message of your kingdom would be preached by the one whom you have sent in these last days, your last days witness, Yisrael Hawkins. And we, the body of priests, continuing his work at this time, and we thank you for your blessings. Ask that you open the doors to those whom you are calling, those who desire to come here to serve and worship you here at your house. And we thank you for your awesome plan. And we are here to serve you, Father Yahweh. Ask you to bless us with health. Heal those who are sick among us, that we may all serve you abundantly in these last days, and with joy in our hearts, and with peace in our minds and our hearts. We ahab you, thank you, praise you for being a Heavenly Father to us. All honor, praise, and thanks to you in Yahshua's name. Hallelujah, Yahweh.
At this time, it's a privilege and honor to turn the services over to the daughters of Yahweh.
Shalom, everyone. Please pay close attention to this whole service. There is going to be tons of knowledge and understanding that will be coming to you. This can only be achieved from this service at the House of Yahweh. Prophecy, laws of health, and gematria all added up to one fantastic lesson. And with this, I'll turn it over to the first speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You can be seated. The peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. My title today is Adjust. Now, when there's the need for adjusting, it means that something is not quite where it's supposed to be. So there's some moving, replacing, flexing, changing a little bit just to get it perfect. It's not the first time that we've been taught or told that the highest being in the universe has literally wrote us an invitation asking us if we want to be part of his staff. So, if we really want to, he gives us the standard that determine the qualifications. So our duty is to adjust ourselves, everything about ourselves, to be able to fit into these standards so we can be part of his staff. And it's also a choice if you want to. So what is these standards? Matthew 19:17 says the laws of Yahweh are these standards. Psalm 19:7 says that these laws of Yahweh, they're going to make you perfect. You're going to be fitting. So where do we learn these laws? In the house of Yahweh, at the feet of the priest. And the priest, Deuteronomy 17:9 tells us to go to the priest. They are the ones who are going to bring us to that perfection so we can be used for Yahweh's work. Deuteronomy 17:10, Deuteronomy 12:8, and Proverbs 3:5 says, just be careful that you do not lean on your own understanding. So far it looks like there will be someone in charge of you, and they're going to be telling you what to do, what you should or should not do. Exactly, because Exodus 20:20 says, Yahweh says, I have come to test and prove you to see if you really want to be part of my staff, or if you're just a hypocrite or a pretender. In the second book of Yisrayl, chapter 1, verse 6, the overseer says, now if you become rebellious, where you cannot be taught by the elders, and then there's no way we can bring you to perfection. We have actually been commanded as elders and teachers in the house of Yahweh to bring you to perfection, if it is at all possible within us. You cannot teach someone who is rebellious, and that's why Yahweh says rebellion is worse than witchcraft, and it should be burned up. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 7 says, remember those who have rule over you, who have spoken the word of Yahweh, the law and the prophet. And remember, Isaiah 8:20 says, if they speak according to the law and the prophet, then there's light within them. So there's light in this. Who have spoken the word of Yahweh, the law and the prophets to you, consider the ultimate result of their ways and follow the faith. In the 14th book of Yisrayl, part 2, chapter 23, verse 117, the overseer says, but he answered and said, it is not right to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. How many of you will be humble enough, and a language like this, to humble yourself and yet beg, Father, to get into the kingdom of Yahweh? I would. I certainly would. I don't care what you call me. I would beg. I would beg. I'll plead. I'll fast. I'll pray. I'll do anything I have to do to get into this kingdom. It's worth humbling yourself. Proverbs chapter 1 verse 8 says, listen to the instruction of your father and do not forsake the Torah, the teachings of your mother. The Torah, teachings of the law of your mother. And reading from Proverbs chapter 2 verse 1 through 6, just paraphrasing, it says, if you'll accept my words, if you'll treasure my laws, if you'll incline your ears to wisdom, apply your mind to understanding, cry for knowledge, cry aloud for understanding, seek after knowledge, then you'll find the reverence of Yahweh, and that Yahweh possesses knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And we know that Malachi 2:7 says, the priest's lips must keep knowledge, and we are supposed to go to them to seek this knowledge from them. They are the ones who are assigned to bring us to that perfection so that we can be used to Yahweh's work. In the second book of Israel, chapter 1, verse 5, the overseer says, the scripture teach from beginning to end that the laws will lead a person to perfection if they will listen to them, learn them, and put them to use in their everyday life. Listen to them. Listen. Remember Acceptance Unit, the intermediate series? Listen with the intent to understand what you're being taught. Learn them. Learn these skills and knowledge to be able to know how to apply it in your life. In the second book of Israel, still, chapter 4 is found on page 26. The second column, it's not really numbered. The verse number is not given, but it's on page 26. The second column, it says, you've heard me say, a foolish person never knows how foolish they are until they learn, until they hear someone tell them something, until they read some information. This shows them how foolish they were. If you can't hear it, if you never study it, if you never see what Yahweh's house has been inspired to bring you, you never know how foolish you are. Believe me, brethren, fools are not going to be in this kingdom. Yahweh has given each and every one of us the ability to learn, to overcome, and to apply ourselves. And this is the end result of what we're looking for, to overcome. Just as we had last Sabbath sermon, Jacob, at the end of it all, he overcame everything before the silver cord was broken. So I have some materials for you. The staff seeking, the first one is the staff seeking. Oh, okay, never mind. All right, then it is us needing some adjustment. You see 18:18, which denotes Deuteronomy 18:18. If you remember, Deuteronomy 18:18 says, I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command. And that was the overseer. And then under him, he has the priest. Listen to verse 19 says, whoever will not listen to the words which he speaks in my name, I will judge him for it. And he appointed priests under him. And they're the ones who are going to bring us to perfection. The next Yahweh says, Yahweh's priests will bring us to perfection if we let them. 6:13, that's the laws of Yahweh. It's actually in the law. Positive law number 174. Listen to the priest. And the last Yahweh overcoming is what we anticipate. 1962, when this message that will bring us to perfection first began. And if you please stand, I'll turn it over to the next teacher.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. If we remember the words of the sermon that we heard last week, our great overseer mentioned a couple times part of the priestly blessing given in Numbers chapter 6, where it says, Yahweh, make his face shine upon you. And today we want to talk about and bring to remembrance some of the things that our great overseer has taught us about what this means and what putting on the face of Yahweh means, and how it ties into the 7 last plagues. The 7 last plagues and the time period we're in now actually helps us to understand this subject a lot more. So if we can turn over to Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, we see that this is a process. It's a scriptural fact that no one has actually ever seen Yahweh physically. In fact, if we did right now, we would be, how it says in Revelation 1, where it's describing Yahshua, and it said, I fell at his feet as though dead. You know, in the bodies that we have now and on this defiled earth, we couldn't stand to see Yahweh and live. But Yahweh, when he created mankind, he wanted us to be able to see his face one day. But first, we have to become a perfect reflection of him and put on the face of Yahweh in order for this to take place. So we see in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, Yahweh said, I will make man in my image according to my likeness. So this is where we see a reflection, a perfect reflection of him.
Before we get into that, the only way that we have ever seen Yahweh, or that anyone has ever seen Yahweh, is through his plan. His plan by the ones who were sent as they taught. Remember, some of them said they saw Yahweh face to face, and we know that at times this was speaking of the Malik, or the messenger that would appear before them. For example, like Moshe, and then they in turn became the face of Yahweh to the people. The face of Yahweh to us for many years has been our great overseer, Yisrayl Hawkins. Praise Yahweh. And this is where we learn to put on the face of Yahweh. This is where it begins. So that his face can shine on us, so that one day we can see him face to face. And this is what the apostle was talking about. Where right now we don't really see Yahweh. We just see a blurred reflection. But soon we will see him face to face. So in Genesis 1 verse 26, we see the image or likeness that's a perfect reflection. And in verse 28, we see Yahweh blessed him. This includes the blessings given in Deuteronomy 28 and the priestly blessing given in number 6. He blessed him and said, "Be fruitful and multiply and have authority like me." And this is, Yahshua was the first one to achieve this. So in Genesis chapter 2, we see the Sabbath. Yahweh created the Sabbath so that mankind could come and learn from the teacher who was the face of Yahweh to them how to put on the face of Yahweh. Genesis chapter 3, we see the face of the serpent. She influenced mankind to be evil as the gods. And in verse 8, we see that Adam and Eve actually hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh, or from the face of Yahweh. And they didn't appear before Yahweh on the Sabbath day. In Genesis 3:22, we see that the plan to give mankind authority was actually allotted 6,000 years. And in all this time, we see another face, which is shown in Genesis 4. Genesis 4:14 through 15. We see Cain said, "I shall not be seen by your face." He separated himself from the face of Yahweh, or the tree of life. He separated himself from the Sabbath day. And for 6,000 years, we've seen the characteristic features of a system led by the serpent, which is continual war, ending in 7 last plagues. So all that our great overseer has taught us helps us to see why we should want the face of Yahweh to shine on us, and what this actually means. If we can get the imagery, it's going to give us a little more detail. So the first one, we see Cain. "I shall not be seen by your face." He left the face of Yahweh. He chose evil as the gods. And we see his number there. And anyone who follows the way of Cain, which is the whole world, has been suffering curses ending in 7 last plagues, which is the result of following the system of the face of the serpent. But back to Yahweh, because this is our goal. Our goal is to become like Yahweh, to put on his face. Yahweh make his face shine upon you. By the way, all of these can be found under Yisrayl Says search on the face of Yahweh. These are things that our great overseer has taught us many years ago. Yahweh make his character shine forward from you, which is perfect in righteousness. This is this process that starts by keeping the Sabbath day at his house. And we see there at great overseer's tag number. Yahweh make his face shine upon you, meaning you're made in the image and likeness of Yahweh. We become that perfect reflection where when one looks at us, they would see Yahweh shining forth from us. Here our great overseer was talking about Hebrews 1. And he was talking about how Yahshua is the reflection, the representation of Yahweh's plan. He explained that this is the face of Yahweh coming back from Yahshua, reflecting to us. He's representing Yahweh. And with our great overseer's tag number there, we all know who follows Yahshua in representing Yahweh. This one's really interesting. We see our great overseer's tag number. Pastor was talking about the face shining. It means the energy coming forth from him. Yahshua is like Yahweh right now. He's combining with Yahweh. And he was explaining how Yahweh has a great amount of power. And in Revelation, where it talks about Yahshua and how he has become like Yahweh, he has a great amount of power as well. And because he's on that level with Yahweh, his energy or his frequency combines with Yahweh. And one day we will be able to have the face of Yahweh shining on us, because our frequency will be just like Yahweh, and no harm will come to us from the energy that comes forth from Yahweh's face actually shining on us in person. Here we see what's written in 1 Corinthians, where the apostle was saying, now we are looking in a mirror that gives only a blurred reflection, but then face to face. It's kind of hidden there between the verses talking about other things, but Pastor explained that this means we will see the face of Yahweh one day. And with the tag number there, we see what time period we're in. We see how that we're very close to coming to the point where if we can make that connection like Yahshua and like our great overseer, we will not only see the face of Yahweh, we'll see Yahshua and our great overseer once again and all of the others who are waiting for us. And they're actually waiting to see our faces as well. Praise Yahweh. Now we have a note here that says, please remain seated and be prepared to see a slideshow, an Oki version of a movie, before the increase of knowledge. So, God bless.
I found my part in the house of Yahweh, among the saints, the chosen one. I was taught the laws, the peaceful solution, the way to peace and joy and love. And if I endure, if I remain in the house of Yahweh, I'll find my part in Yahweh Shema. In the house of Yahweh, my labor of love I freely gave. We taught the laws to the war-raging nations, about to souls to save. And if they repent and convert to the peaceful solution, they'll find great peace through Yahweh Shema. Assignment will teach the angels righteousness. We've armed ourselves with the peaceful solution, the plan Yahweh brought from the east to the west. They'll change their laws to those of Father Yahweh, receiving peace through Yahweh Shema.
Okay, before you're seated, I want to tell everyone, was that a wonderful way to stand in your place even though your voice left you this morning? Praise Yahweh. Our great Kohana still wanted to give her speech, even though her voice did not want to let her. Praise Yahweh. Please be seated. The title of my speech today is It's a Real Wrestling Match. Don't take your opponent lightly. I'm going to repeat that. It's a real wrestling match. Don't take your opponent lightly. In the Mark of the Beast, Volume 2, Chapter 15, verse 91, Pastor said, the word adversary means opponent. Since Satan is our greatest opponent, she is our arch enemy. Satan is against, opposed to every righteous thing that Yahweh teaches. Satan's ways are a contrast of Yahweh's way. A substitution of Yahweh's way is used instead of Yahweh's way by those who are completely influenced by Satan. From the End Book, chapter 2, verse 394. Satan, Hebrew, Satan, Greek, Satanas, an adversary, opponent, the chief, head, high, the highest, the greatest. Remember, she was perfect. The chief of all the fallen spirits. Now, I don't want you to underestimate the power or the influence of our adversary. Can you just picture her? Yahweh, is it almost time yet? Is it almost time to start knocking out some of those pillars and getting rid of the overseer? Is it almost time? She knew Yahweh's plan. Remember what she did with Yahshua? Is it almost time yet? You could just see her rubbing her hands together. Is it almost time yet? Those people of yours, they will fall, they will run. Smite the shepherd and those sheep, they are going to run. Look at this sanctuary. This sanctuary is full. The online views are loaded. The calls are still coming in to the office, and no, Satan, adversary, these sheep are not going to scatter. We are going to bring this kingdom in because we have a job to do, like our great Kahan Yedidia told us last week. Okay, she talked behind our backs. She said you couldn't do it. She said we couldn't do it. She said we weren't going to make it. House of Yahweh, are we going to prove her wrong? Yes. Turn to Ephesians 6, verse 12, please. Ephesians 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not only, which means we do wrestle against flesh and blood. Yes, sometimes we struggle with one another. It's a fact. But we wrestle not only against flesh and blood, but also against principalities, against powers, influences. These influences are very strong. Do not underestimate the influence or the power of our enemy. Against rulers, remember the chief ruler, she was the head. She was put over all the Malachim of the darkness of this world, against spiritual forces of the evil one in the heavens. Okay. I want to give a little analogy here. We all know this. There's Yahweh's way and everything else. Is that true or false? So if you're not upholding Yahweh's way, the way that our overseer set it up, and who he put in charge of the house of Yahweh at this time, which is who? The great priest of Yahweh. We would never, ever, ever want to oppose those great men that our overseer, the one sent by Yahweh, put in these offices and then said before his departure, and he knew that his time was drawing short, and he drew up papers and he said, look guys, now it's your turn. Lead these people into the kingdom. Get them ready because I'm coming back, right? Turn to the third book of Israel, chapter 5, verse 78. the third book of Israel, chapter 5, verse 78. It says, Pastor says here, it takes a long time to overcome some of these sins. You wrestle with them. You wrestle with the scriptures. Can you imagine now? Remember, we learned, Pastor taught us in a sermon last week that it wasn't like a physical wrestling with a human being that was going on. How many of you have ever been on the floor in a wrestling match with your scriptures, your book of Yahweh? Like rolling around, getting them down in a headlock, pinning them down? Not really, right? But Pastor said here, you wrestle with the scriptures. It's something that you have to practice and determine in your mind that you are not going to do. Okay, we see that we're not supposed to do something in Yahweh's sacred scriptures. It's real simple. Don't do it. If Yahweh says do it, uphold it, what do? We do it and we uphold it. I want to remind you of Deuteronomy 17:9. Go to the priests, the judges, those who are in office. These mighty men right now that sit over, they take their seat like Boaz in the house of Yahweh and do our part, as Hebrews says, right? And I know we are. It's just this is a reminder. Because we can't let our opponent, the adversary, ever put a wedge between us and Yahweh. And those mighty men right now, they represent and they stand in the place of Yahweh. Remember, Pastor taught us, he was Yahweh to us, and we were to be Yahweh to him. Well, anyone standing in his place right now is definitely Yahweh to us. And we don't have access to get to where those men can go. But we can be there and support them, and we can do what we are required to do in our place, which is really kind of easy. Submit. I mean, think about it. Especially we women. We have it so easy. Yahweh told us, and Pastor brought it out in the keys to the kingdom. You know, it's kind of easy for you. Here's your key, obedience. And the Kahan brought it out that we haven't heard from in so long. Remember, to believe means to obey, right? You think about what Pastor left us with here. He was not going to leave us without a way for us to achieve our goal. Our goal is to get into that kingdom. We have not been here this long to give it up now. So we need to line up behind these righteous men and help them in this great work. And whatever they ask of us, that we would do it with a willing and a pure heart. Remember Azariah and Nehemiah? Those who were willing, and they brought forth and they got so much work done. And there were people that opposed them too. Oh, yes, it's written. It is written. But Yahweh will prevail. He will succeed. He has never left us without a way. And House of Yahweh, we have such a short time just watching the news, and we're probably going to see some of this today. The nations are lined up for war. And we are lined up for peace, right? Okay, so he says then you have to brace yourself and be ready for a surprise attack from Satan. And that was from the third book of Israel, chapter 5, verse 78. Now the 12th book of Israel, part 2, chapter 9, verse 77. And Pastor says, and that's Yahweh. That's what Yahweh is looking for, is at the effort that you're putting in. Now, okay, only we know the effort we're putting in this time period. Oh, Pastor's gone, you know. If I go to work, I go to work. If I do the work, I do the work. No! Right! Not only when their eyes are upon us, right? We have been trained to do what we need to be doing, and we need to be doing it because guess what? The heavens are watching. It's all being recorded, and Pastor's going to have his popcorn, and he's going to be watching everything. And you know what? When he's watching on that great sea of glass, I want him to be smiling with his popcorn, seeing that the ones that he trained did their part and did it well, right? Praise Yahweh. So he's looking for the effort. When we get our new bodies, we won't be having to wrestle against sin anymore. It's going to take over. Righteousness will take over. Righteousness will take over. We can do this. So I put in the gematria. We wrestle with Yahweh's plan because sometimes we do. Now, it was 322, which is our great pastor's tag number. And 322 is to indicate or appoint, and we've been appointed to finish this work right now. The other number was 4655, and in the Greek that means shadiness, from Greek 4639, which means shadow. We are here right under Yahweh's shadow where we belong, doing Yahweh's work. And then Greek number 1932 was the last number, was 1932, suitableness. If we do that and stand in our place, we will be suitable. So I wanted to know, okay, we learned what it was to wrestle with Yahweh, but what would be the opposite of that be? Because we don't want to be wrestling with Yahweh. So I went to the wordhippo.com and I put in, what is the opposite of wrestling? Can you believe it means agreeing, surrendering, ladies, making peace, the peaceful solution, living by it, right? In the 7th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 5, verse 33, Pastor says Yahweh's always going to be our head. He won't put up with anything outside of his laws, right? He says, he won't put up with it. Neither will Yahshua. Yahshua is 100% in agreement with him. We just learned that to be opposite of wrestling is to be in agreement. So, is Yahshua in agreement? Yeah, we just saw that, right? Yahshua is in 100% agreement with him. The 3rd book of Israel, chapter 12, verse 111. Pastor says, I'm in full agreement with Yahweh. I'm in 100% agreement with Yahweh. Let's go to Matthew 25, because here's a wonderful thing Yahshua is showing. Moshe presented the kingdom to you before, and this is what I told you to get in your minds. So, was Pastor in 100% agreement with Yahweh? Yes, he told us he was. So was Pastor wrestling against Yahweh? No way. Now, our turn. The 2nd book of Israel, chapter 22, verse 82. The 2nd book of Israel, chapter 22, verse 82. Yahweh tells you to come to perfection, to be perfect as he is. And then he tells you how to come to perfection. And Pastor's not left us without the way to do that. I know the whole world fights against this, but not your scriptures. Only Yahweh can give you eternal life, and Yahweh is the only one you must follow and must be in full agreement with. House of Yahweh, no more wrestling, agreement, be peacemakers, and stand and welcome the great men that are going to take us there, the great priest in Yahweh's house. Praise Yahweh!
Praise Yahweh. In the 9th book of Israel, and this was the chosen branch, this was part of that 1567 heap of testimony that we saw in the Oki slideshow. Pastor said here in chapter 10, verse 7, he said, Satan would like nothing better, brethren, than to wipe out the house of Yahweh in these last days. She'd win the battle if she could do it, but Yahweh says she won't. I believe Yahweh, Pastor said. And he finished up, he said, I believe Yahweh, and I'm going to keep pushing. And that's our job, to keep pushing the work of Yahweh. So to continue our learning today, turn our services over to the great deacon, Michael Ossoff.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. Please be seated. Yahweh's peace be with each and every one of you on this beautiful Sabbath day. You have to be watching, but the prophecies are being fulfilled right before our very eyes. And have you noticed, as things are being brought out in Yahweh's house now, how all the speakers are in line with each other with the messages that are coming forth, and we don't plan these things out. Yahweh is truly working with his teachers in these last days. He's truly working with all of us, the house of Yahweh, to help bring forth this message. And we're going to see this message grow stronger than it ever has. Satan will not be able to stop anything Yahweh is going to do through this house and the teachings of Yisrayl. So I did a search on the temple before, but I wanted to revisit it and see what was in there, because there's rumblings of the temple being rebuilt, and they're starting to push it subtly because they don't want it to come out full force because it will cause problems. But they are moving and getting in that direction to start bringing forth the temple being rebuilt. So I typed in the search, temple rebuilding, and it wasn't in there because every time I looked up the Hebrew word for temple, it came up Beit Yahweh. And I'm like, okay. And I wanted to find and see if in the Hebrew, if they actually used the word temple. And there was one time in the Hebrew that they used the Hebrew word temple for Yekechke's temple, the third temple to be rebuilt. Only one time. So I used that Hebrew word, and temple rebuilding came up. But it not only came up, but for your notes, the letter skip was 24,419 characters spanning the entire volume 1 of the Holy Scriptures. And also this particular area was found in Isaiah 66:22. All right? And it talks about, well, everything in the search was everything that's in the temple brochure, which totally blew my mind. It's just like all this stuff was coming up. So let's get right into it. But there's a lot going on. I want to show you something. This is, let's see if you can see this. Let's go to the overhead. They know now that the temple is supposed to be built next to the mosque, and they agree with it, and they're pushing it subtly. But if you look at that, that's pictures that are going around. Look at that. It's not our temple, but you notice how now they're agreeing with it. It needs to be put next to it. That's probably, see that? Where did they get that from? The house of Yahweh is where they got that from. And there's going to be much more brought on this. So let's get into this. Okay, so let me let you get a screenshot here. Zoom out one. Okay. Get that up for a moment so you can get your screenshot. And then this. Okay. Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, the first thing we have, of course, is temple rebuilding with the Hebrew word that actually means temple, not Beit. Okay, it's actual word for temple. Temple rebuilding. And then over here, number 2 and number 3, patent house of Yahweh. Patent Beit Yahweh. Okay? Then over here, now this is really interesting right in here. Okay? We have Jerusalem. Jerusalem's right there. And then if we go over to here, number 5 is leaflet, booklet, pamphlet, brochure. Right there. Okay? Then right here, number 6 and number 7. Number 6 and number 7 is Rabbi Ariel. He's the founder of the Temple Institute. Rabbi Ariel. Okay? This next one, I was very amazed at this next one. Okay. 8, 9, 10, and 11. 8, 9, and then we got 10 and 11. 8, 9, 10, 11 is domed building, southward, public. A public building next to a dome building that's south of the temple rebuilding. And it connects to temple rebuilding. All right? Then, this is absolutely wonderful when I saw this. Okay, so we got that. Right here, 12, 13, 14. Okay, these are the 3 priests that were in the temple brochure. Yisrayl, David, Jacob. Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, Kohan David Heimerman Hawkins, and Kohan Jacob Moshe Hawkins. They were the ones who were instrumental in bringing this about by Yahweh's guidance. Okay? Then we have, over here, we have 15, 16, 17, and 18. 15, 16, 17 is 18 is, get this, prophecy written, okay, prophecy written, 585 BY. Prophecy was written about this last temple, the third temple, in 585 BY. And that's in the book of Yahweh that's marked in there, and the temple brochure. Okay? Now, we go back over to Jerusalem, and this word right here, which crosses Jerusalem, and we'll come back to 22, but 19 is God's Elohim. Jerusalem, God's Elohim, and we're going to come back to that. Okay, so 19. And we go over here to 20 and 21. 20 and 21 is long cubit. A long cubit. And for more information on that, I highly suggest you can download the PDF of the temple brochure, and I highly suggest you go through it and refresh your memory and your knowledge with your scriptures and the books of Yisrayl on the prophecies concerning the temple rebuilding, because it's going to take place. Long cubit. Now, we go back to 22, which is mixed with Jerusalem and God's Elohim, and it's Den Lair. Den of gods is what Jerusalem is right now. And that's been brought out. It's in the scriptures. There's nothing but God worship taking place there, except for the house of Yahweh doing the work there that we're still doing there. Okay, now last, I didn't think about this, but the new leader of Israel, Naphtali Bennett, has been quietly pushing the temple rebuilding, and you can find this online. And he's setting aside money for the Palestinian schools and businesses to be rebuilt. And he is moving in that direction. And also Yair Lapid is also behind the rebuilding of the temple. So I thought this morning, you know what? I need to see if Naphtali Bennett's name is in there. So I went back and I had to pen it in. Let's go back to the to the search, and right here we have Leader Bennett temple rebuilding, and of course it was there right with the temple rebuilding. Leader Bennett, and also the name Naphtali was in this area also. So the prophecies are going to be fulfilled. Every word that Yisrael Hawkins has brought out is going to be fulfilled. Make no mistake. If it's not forever like Yisrael Hawkins' teachings, then we don't want it. Okay? Yisrael Hawkins' teachings are forever. So watch the news. Pay close attention to the speakers that are coming after me. And guard and keep your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. Everything has to be in accordance with what you've been taught through Yahweh's house. With that, I'll turn it over to the great priest, the great Kohan, Zephaniah Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh. In the seventh book of Israel, this was the teachers of righteousness. Part 2, Pastor was going over part of the prophecy, as he said, prophecy is my thing. He said, now tie this here into the prophecy in Micaiah 7, verse 11. In that day, your walls will be rebuilt. And he said, that is the temple. That day, your boundary will be extended. And you will see this prophecy come together here and know when these things are going to take place. Isn't that wonderful? And praise Yahweh. That's the blessing we have in the house of Yahweh. We see these things. We're told beforehand. So when we see them, we might believe. At this time, I'll turn the services over to the great Kohan, Benjamin Krause Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Yahweh's blessings be with everyone. Please be seated, and we'll go ahead and we'll put up for your notes the title slide today. This is part 2 of Yahweh Will Make a Short Work. The dwellings of his palace. This is taken from the book of Daniel, chapter 11. And we're going to be putting some things to rest about the Jerusalem Embassy Act in the last 3.5 years. As you can see, I have today's Roman date up there, and you see the number 1322. Keep that in your mind. You're going to see that all through this. Let's go to the first slide. Now, at that time, Daniel 12:1, at that time there will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation to that same time. Now, pastors always told us that's the beginning of the last 3.5 years. At that time, he saw the ship on 6/24/2019 with that same number 454 on it. Okay, and he saw that ship. Here's the quote from in the cloud. This is from the last 3.5 years of the 7-year peace treaty. The world will end here, 6/29/19, which was 5 days after the ship was seen. He said, I was writing a letter concerning the 3.5 years. I looked up, and just to the south of the sanctuary, here was a cloud up in the air. It was a perfect picture of that ship, that fighting vessel. Now, he's talking about the one that I showed with this 454 on it that docked in the Havana harbor. Now, put in the last 3.5 years, you get the number 1322. That's the number of the bill that Bob Dole introduced on October 13, 1995, the Jerusalem Embassy Act. And if you remember, just a few days before he saw the ship is when he said no more waivers, so the last 3.5 years begins. What a coincidence, right? Let's see. Let's go to the next slide. Put in at that time, and you get all the numbers. 117 means principal, and 702 means for. Pastor taught us in the Wars in that Fourth Part of the Earth prophecy from Yahweh's branch, the Middle East Quartet emerged from a desire among the four principal international players engaged in the peace process: the United Nations, the United States, the European Union, and the Russian Federation. Put in four principal players: the United Nations, the United States, the European Union, the Russian Federation. You get Pastor's tag because he's the one that taught you that. And you get 4748, which is when the UN came up with their partition plan for Israel. And also you had the Israeli civil war with Palestine, and you had the war for Jerusalem. That's when all this trouble really basically began, in 47 and 48. And 7.2 or 702 also alludes to Revelation 7.2, the four Malachim, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. Let's go to the next slide. From the 18th book of Israel, chapter 34, verse 44 and 45, Pastor says, the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, that's part of the quartet's management. The quartet is led, believe it or not, by the Vatican Church, by the ones that control America. Remember Revelation 13. Revelation 13 shows you, starting with about verse 15, the two-horned beast. Two-horned. Those are the Catholics and the Protestants. The two-horned beast, led by the Vatican. You can see this from the laws they pass. The lawgiver comes from Yada. Remember that. So put in Pastor's words, opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. That's part of the quartet's management. The quartet is led, believe it or not, by the Vatican Church. You get 1322. That's the bill number of the Jerusalem Embassy Act. What a coincidence, right? The second number, 7932, means to dwell, have habitation, to abide, rest, settle, station, set up, to reside or permanently stay. It's talking about an embassy that's going to be put in Jerusalem, that's going to abide and stay and permanently stay there. Now notice the third number, 7625, means a tribe. Ruling, scepter, staff, tribe, spear. That's talking about Yada. Didn't Pastor just tell you who's controlling this thing? Let's go to the next slide. This is Revelation 13:15. And he had power to give life. That means breathe. Power to perform to the likeness of the beast, that the likeness of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the likeness of the beast should be killed. You know, like our great overseer? Put that in, you get 2019. Now look here, below there. Put in that the likeness of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the likeness of the beast should be killed. You get 6619. Oh, that's when the final Jerusalem Embassy Act waiver expired. 6619. How would Yahweh know the date? The second number, 1135, means to arise, to come into being, began, come to pass, proving, fall, be finished, be ended. Yeah, the last 3.5 years started then. Put in breathe and power to perform. You get 262, declaration. 1757, dura. Remember in Daniel chapter 3, there was a proclamation made that you must worship this image of Nebuchadnezzar or you'd be thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Add those two numbers, you get 2019. Same thing again, right? Just like in Daniel 3, the image of Nebuchadnezzar. How did he give power to this, power to perform and breathe life into this thing? Let me show you how. Go to the next slide. I want you to meet Mr. Robert Dole, 33rd degree Grand Cross Mason. that introduced the bill. You know, the Masons, you know what they want to do? They want to rebuild the temple. That's what their whole deal's about, rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem. Now, it wasn't just Robert Dole, don't get me wrong. I'm going to show you it's a lot more than that. This is from the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry website. I put in what they put about Robert Dole, Grand Cross 33rd degree, decorated veteran, World War II, U.S. Congressman and Senator from Kansas, from 1961 to 96, majority and minority leader of the U.S. Senate, nominee for United States President, 1996, honored as Supreme Temple Architect. He's in the top 33 Masons in American history. And it says, honored as Supreme Temple Architect, 1997, portrait donated by the Orient of Kansas. Put that in, you get 2474 Israel, because that's who this is about, Israel, the nation of Israel. 1484 is the second number. It means a whelp. Remember Yada, the lion's whelp? 1344 is the third number, and it means to rise up. This beast, remember this rising up, this last 3.5 years. Add those up, you get 5302, and it means breathe. Oh, he's the one that gave breath to this by this law that was passed back in 1995 that didn't go into action until what year? 2019. Remember, no more waivers. Let's go to the next slide. The 19th book of Israel, chapter 21, verse 37, pastor's talking about Revelation 13 again, and he says, exercised all the authority. Exercised. I have something on this. Here it is. The word exercised. It means, listen closely, active use or operation. That's number one. Performance of duties. It sets in line the performance of duties. It's talking about how the Vatican controls the lawmakers here in America. Read this sermon. I challenge you to read the sermon right here. It's all about how Yada uses America to pass laws to get their way. When you put that quote in, you get 1322. That's the bill number that Robert Dole introduced, the Jerusalem Embassy Act. What a coincidence, right? Let's find out. Let's go to the next slide. This is from the book The End, chapter 21, verse 270. Pastor said, Daniel is still writing about the same religious leaders who devised the 7-year peace plan and confirmed it with Rabin September 13, 1993, when he writes in Daniel 11:45, and he will plant the dwellings of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain of Zion. Yet he will come to his end, and none will help him. Put that in, the same religious leaders who devised the 7-year peace plan and confirmed it with Rabin, you get 823. Well, that's alluding to Daniel 8:23, where it says, and in the last days of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, the king of fierce expression, or remember, forced immorality, and understanding dark sentences, skilled in trickery and deception, will stand up. The second number, 4938, means a staff. So it's talking about Yada on the 7 hills. Remember, the shepherd. Go to the next slide. So type in, let's see if he's right here. Let's see if pastor's right. The Oslo Accords, the Jerusalem Embassy Act. You get 2420. Hey, that's the number used in Daniel 8:23 about sinister schemes. Sinister schemes. And it means, look here, skilled in double dealing. Skilled in double dealing. This is from Strong's. Double dealing, 666. Who would that be? Double dealing means the practice of working to people's disadvantage behind their backs. Yeah, it's a peace plan, right? It's going to bring peace. That's not what it was designed to do. Pastor told you that. It's designed to bring destruction. Let's go to the next slide. Put in double dealing, all the synonyms from, this is from the Google search. I put in double dealing. Here's all the synonyms. Duplicity, treachery, betrayal, double crossing, faithlessness, unfaithfulness, untrustworthiness, infidelity, bad faith, disloyalty, perfidy, perfidiousness, treason, breach of trust, fraud, fraudulence, underhandedness, cheating, dishonesty, deceit, deceitfulness, deception, falseness, stab in the back, backstabbing, lying, mendacity, trickery, two-facedness, and punic faith. Put those in, you get 3515, and it means difficult and oppressive. And the second number, 1840, means Daniel. Well, look at your footnote in Daniel 9:27, and it tells you that this covenant, this prince confirmed, will be difficult to many. Oh, really? And then put in the covenant this prince confirms will be difficult to many. You get the same number, 35:15, difficult and oppressive. What a coincidence, right? Go to the next one, next slide. Skilled in deception and in double dealing, 2034, 7. Remember the 7 mountains that the woman sits on? Rome, Italy. The second number is 944, and it means frogs. Now, you remember about the frogs, right? Let's go to the next slide. Let me jar your memory. Daniel 11:45 says, and he will plant the dwellings of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain of Zion, yet he will come to his end, and none will help him. Put that in, you get 1398, and it means mighty warrior. From 1396, act insolently, prevail, confirm a strong covenant. It's the very word used in Daniel 9:27. Oh, really? And then when you put in the papal throne in Rome and the dwellings of his palace, you get the same number, 1398 from 1396. And then you get 944, it means frogs. Now, surely you remember I told you that the Lateran Palace, where the Pope, his seat still is to this day, that's where their throne actually is. They moved to the Vatican in the 1500s, but the seat is still the Lateran Palace. Palace, Lateran means hidden frog. Hidden frog, huh? What a coincidence. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see if it's a coincidence. So the Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1995, it says, it's an act to provide for the relocation of the United States Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem and for other purposes. Put in the relocation of the United States Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, you get 666, the number of the beast. The second number, 3996, means a coming in, entering, get this, mode of entering the temple. In other words, a sneaky, crafty way of building the temple in Jerusalem to seat their false Messiah. The third number, 3437, means he will return. Well, we'll get to that later in Daniel 11, where it talks about he will return in the latter times. We'll see who that is. Add that up, you get 8099 from 8085, and it means proclamation. Proclamation. Now, what proclamation is he talking about here? Go to the next slide. Well, this proclamation. Remember on December 6, 2017, the proclamation recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel and relocating the United States Embassy to Israel to Jerusalem? That's the exact words. That's the WhiteHouse.gov website. I just put in what they put, proclamation recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel and relocating the United States Embassy to Israel to Jerusalem. And I got the number 1322 again, the same number of the Jerusalem Embassy Act from 1995. Really? Pastor's a false prophet? No, you're a false prophet, parking lot preachers. The ones that are going around saying the last 3.5 years didn't start till pastor went to sleep. You idiot. Yeah, I'm going to call you out. I got the X chromosome going right now. You're an idiot. And you're an idiot for spreading these lies to the people. And you need to repent. The second number, 7932, means to dwell, have habitation, to abide, dwell, rest, settle, station, set up, to reside or permanently stay. It's talking about the embassy. Now, what has that got to do with the Oslo, right? Because final status of Jerusalem has been determined already by America. They said, along with the Vatican and the quartet, the capital of Israel is Jerusalem. Read the Oslo Agreement. Let's go to the next slide. Now, is the Lateran Palace really behind this? Let's find out. In Revelation 17:5, and it says, and upon her head was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of the harlots and the abominations of the earth. Notice it's capitalized. Well, guess what? On the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran Church, where the Pope's seat is, Do you see the capital letters there? Now remember, harlots means God worshipers. And then the second side note, H, says that they're responsible for the atrocities and sufferings and warfare. And then abominations of the earth says, see Leviticus 11, 7 through 13. Yes, they're the teacher of all the abominations. They're the one bringing all the war and the suffering. This beast, this whore that's riding the beast, this whore on the 7 hills that's riding America, and the quartet. They're double dealers. Do you understand that? They're using, the Vatican is using the quartet. They're using America. They're controlling them. Did you hear what Pastor said? And they're double dealers. They're liars. They're frauds. They're tricksters. They're not trying to bring peace. Now, go to the next slide. It has the Latin that's written on that stone on the facade of the Lateran Palace. Here's what it says: Most Holy Lateran Church, Most Holy Lateran Church of all churches in the city and the world, the mother and head. Inscription on the facade of the Basilica of St. John Lateran. I took that from Wikipedia, word for word, and look what I got, 1322. Again, the number of the bill introduced on 10/13/95. Now, 10/13 should remind you of something. That's a feast of Mary. It's the feast of Guadalupe. Remember, this whole thing is to exalt who? The Queen of Heaven, the Lord of Heaven. The second, or 1322 in Hebrew means idol, confusion. Remember God, confusion. Remember Babylon, mystery Babylon. 1322 in Greek means doctrine and teaching. Yes, they're the ones with the doctrine and teaching of all the breaking of Yahweh's laws that's causing the wars and the suffering and the plagues. The second number, 7932, means cause to dwell, have habitation, abide, dwell, establish, and station. Talking about the embassy. And the third number, 6444 from 6434, means corner, chief, and ruler. Yes, that's the ruling church that came from Coptic Catholic Egypt and was moved to Jerusalem and then to Rome. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now get this. Put in 12/6/2017. That's when Trump made his announcement that they're going to move the embassy. Put in 5/14/2018. That's when they opened the embassy in Jerusalem. And 6/6/2019, when no more waivers. And you get 6936, and it means crown. Crown of the head. Does anybody remember about that word crown? Something about plagues? Y'all remember that? Crown of the head. And then 1022. Remember Isaiah 10:22 I told you last week? The consumption and destruction that's been decreed? Let's go to the next slide. This is from the 17th book of Israel, chapter 22, verse 40. Pastor says, Daniel 9:27, and he will confirm a covenant with many, Rabin, for 1 week. And that's 7 years. All authorities agree with this time period, these 7 years. Keep that in your mind. It's going to be split in half in the midst. Notice, the midst of the week, which is 3.5 years. He will cause this to all stop, and he will cause the prevalence of the Lord of heaven. This is where 2 Thessalonians says he will take his seat in the temple, even until the destruction that is determined. The destruction that is prophesied would be a better word for it. Even until the destruction that is prophesied will be poured upon the desolator. You get the number 6023. Now look at Pastor's words about the number 6023. He says, look at 6023 and add 3 years to it. You got that? Add the two numbers, 4004 and 2019. 2019 was when they failed to sign it. When they failed to sign the Jerusalem Embassy Act. No more waivers. From that date, you will still have 3.5 years. And then he shows the math. 4004 in 2019 is 6023. That's when the destruction determined was poured out. Remember the coronavirus. When's the last of the 7 plagues going to be poured out? The final nuclear burning, the 1-hour burning coming up this year. Pastor's a false prophet? No, you're a false prophet. You're a false prophet. If you speak against our overseer, you're the false prophet. Get behind me, Satan. Now, let me put the icing on the cake. Final slide. This is 1 Thessalonians 2:4. Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called gods, Elohim, or that is worship, so that he, as the Almighty, sits in the temple of Yahweh, showing himself that he is the mighty one, Elohim, God. That's word for word. I added rebuilt temple because where it says temple, it says rebuilt temple in your book of Yahweh. And look at the number. 2022. 2022. I don't believe in the numbers. I believe in the numbers, and I believe in them when they match Pastor, his words, and the prophecies. In the second book of Israel, chapter 35, verse 21, Pastor says it could be showing himself or herself. You get number 1616, that's alien, because the aliens, it's whatever, they're gender neutral, right? Please speak for Pastor. Stand up for Pastor Israel Hawkins. Stop believing the parking lot deceivers. I'm not talking about the people out there parking cars and the people that are singing, doing Yahweh's work. I'm talking about the deceivers that go around whispering these lies. At this time, it's been a great pleasure and opportunity to speak to you. Sorry, I got a little excited. I'd like to turn it back over now to the great Kohan Sophania Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh. While the governments of this world, they're promoting their plans for Jerusalem, the House of Yahweh is teaching, come out of this world up to the true mountain of Yahweh, the 2022, the mountain of Yahweh. So to keep us current with what's taking place in the news today, we turn the services over to the great Kohan, Ilya Heiler Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. In continuing along with the teachings of the seventh Malach and many people wondering what's going on at this time. Well, we're in the last part of this plan of Yahweh. And it's our job not to bring you any new teachings, but to prove to you the teachings of the seventh Malach. And 2 billion people are going to come out. They're going to come out seeing the teachings of what he said and what he brought and the warning that he gave through this established house. And of course, we're going to start off with the grocery stores and the chains where they're breaking down. Of course, they want to say it's transitorial, which means the trucking is not able to get it to your shelves, but it's not. If you want to know why it's breaking down, you start with the farmers. And you go see what's going on at the farms. And here we have our first article, and it says, farms are failing as fertilizer prices drive up cost of food. And you have to remember, farming is a business. And it's a very razor-thin business on profit margins. And whenever the cost of the product to produce the whatever it is they're producing, and I'll give you some instances here. It's avocados, corn, coffee, coconuts, and oil palms. Well, they have to bring these items forth through a production level on a commercial level to create profit. Well, they're not able to do that anymore because the ingredients that they're needing to bring forth their items on the commercial scale they've gotten themselves into, they got out of Yahweh's way and they got into the chemical way. And it says farms are failing and many people are not growing anymore. There's no profit in it. There's no reason for them to plant their crops and to try to harvest them to get them to market because it's too expensive. And if you were going to grow something, imagine you're growing apples. And you can sell your apples for $1 a piece, but it costs you $2 to grow them. You're not really going to mess with it anymore. You're going to let it go. And we're talking about on a commercial level because that's what they're doing. But you're going to see these grocery stores, these shelves are becoming more and more empty. And if you remember the words of the seventh Malach, he said, if you have a lot of money, you better be buying the things you need. If you want to brush your teeth, you better be buying toothpaste. If you want certain things, you better be buying them. And we even talked about how they're becoming more expensive. And the dollar itself, a lot of people don't understand how the dollar devalues itself very quickly because they keep seeing that dollar and they go spend things. But whenever you went to buy laundry detergent, which is now skyrocketing, if you were paying $4 just last year for it and today you pay $8 or $7, surely anyone can see where their dollar's not worth as much as it was. It's called inflation, but you're paying a lot more, so your money's worth less. And it's not going to get any better. It's important to understand that. If you're waiting for prices to drop to get things, you're in the wrong mindset. It's not going to get any better. When you have farmers closing their farms, production levels are slowing down, some of them have come to a standstill, that causes prices to skyrocket. And throwing more money in the economy doesn't help. When more people have more money buying less product, it becomes even more expensive. So it's important to understand, if you need it, please get it. Get it while you can. It's not going to get better. And of course, one of the very last things that the seventh Malach told this world was, your medications aren't going to help. You're trying to fight this coronavirus and you're trying to medicate. You're going to try to vaccinate your way out of it, and it's not going to help you. Well, what are they saying now? Israeli trial world's first finds 4 doses, not good enough. 4 doses not good enough. 4th COVID shot is not enough to stop the Omicron. Israel studies show 4th shot of COVID-19 vaccine less effective on Omicron. These things aren't working. And remember the words of the 7th Malach. He said, the numbers aren't really growing as fast as they should. We're seeing it right now in the thousands and in the millions, but it's going to have to get into the billions. And remember, they said that if we vaccinate, they being the World Health Organization and the CDC, they said this, if we vaccinate, we can stop the spread. And they're still saying that to this day. It's not true. And you can see many people say these breakthrough cases are coming out very strongly. Well, last year, and Drudge is doing this every day. You can go on Drudge Report and see this for yourself. They show how many cases there were last year and how many cases we have this year. So last year, and this was yesterday's date that they're showing, last year, the COVID cases in the United States were 190,482. Due to the vaccines and all the things that's been done, we should be doing better, right? Well, here you see what it was yesterday, this year. You went from last year, 190,000, to this year was 825,000. Doesn't seem to be working. What they're doing doesn't seem to be working. It's not slowing it down. You're also going to see right now with these 800,000 cases a day, they're saying that that's 9 Americans every second that is testing positive for COVID. And scientists are also saying that by the 3rd Roman month, they call it March, that you're going to see over 60% of the world's population be infected with the Omicron variant. That's taking out the Delta, it's taking out the original variant of the COVID-19. They're saying just the Omicron will be 60% infected. We're getting down to 2 billion people really quickly. And the numbers are growing just like the 7th Malach said they would. And they're continuing to grow. Praise Yahweh. But in honor of their gods, of course, you see what's going on here. The Olympics are coming up very soon in China. And they're locking down in China, but they're still wanting to see these Olympics through. And remember what the Olympics are based on. Of course, it's in honor to the gods. But now you have scientists saying that, this COVID's not going away. We're just going to have to find out how to live with it. And now they're wanting to classify it as a disease, like heart disease, cancer, and so forth. They're wanting to classify this as a disease. And then they're wanting to say, just medicate, take a shot. They're trying to combine the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine, an all-in-one deal. But it's not working. And that's the important thing to notice. And this is not something the House of Yahweh is saying. You can go on I don't care whether it's Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Al Jazeera, RT, Press TV. They're all reporting the same thing. The COVID vaccine does not work. It's not effective like they thought it was going to be. You still get it, but they say, well, you're most likely not going to die from it. You're never going to die from it to begin with. They're just finding out it doesn't kill. And the vaccine has nothing to do with that. But once again, we're not telling you to take it or not to take it. We're just telling you that scientists has proven it's not helping. It's not stopping anyone from getting this virus. Then the seventh Malach also brought out that we're going to see mental illness reach an all-time level. COVID is playing in part of that. They're finding out that long-term COVID, or the effects of COVID, actually is changing the fluid in the spine that connects to the brain, and it's causing effects. Now, this isn't all a part of this mental illness. The mental illness comes from breaking what Leviticus 18 speaks about and going in and defiling the body. And you're going to see in the news where a young woman working by herself in a furniture store, a man just walks in and stabs her to death. No reason on earth to do it. And then another man standing in New York decides to push a woman in front of a train coming down the subway. He just pushes her right in front of it. Why? Why are these things taking place, and why are we so shocked? Why are we so shocked when people are dying every day? Murder is on the rise, and you're going to see that statistic. Murder, hatred, the lack of care for human life is on the rise, and that's so different from what Yahweh says. Yahweh says that I would that not one would die. The house of Yahweh and the seventh Malach has always stood up for trying to help people have a better life. Well, you know, you can push a woman in front of a subway, or you can lie to someone and say, did someone tell you you can't do that and you're not going to die? Go ahead and do it. And then when the body is rotting from cancer, or the heart is suffering because there's no oxygen going to the body because the heart has gone weak, and they're laying there and they're suffering, which one's better? It's very, going into the next article you're going to see, this man's heart's going out, and Pastor said you're going to see them start putting pig organs into human beings. And that's exactly what they've done now. And this is called success. They have put this pig heart into a man through a heart transplant, and he's still living. And they consider that success. They also experimented with a man who was brain dead, and they put kidneys from a pig in him, and his body didn't reject them for 3 days before they went ahead and removed him from the life support. They wanted to experiment with this man. Now, instead of telling people what they're doing that's destroying their body, they're telling them, don't worry, we can fix it. We've got pigs now that we can put inside of you, and now we don't have to worry about an organ shortage. We have just an enormous amount of pigs, and we'll fix you. You just keep living life the way you're living it. Now, these are the same people making decisions concerning nuclear weapons, concerning the outlook of our future. And we're putting a lot into this. They're also the same people that said that, I don't know where Yisrayl Hawkins gets these 7 plagues. I don't see it taking place. But you know what? Pastor put in the book of the 2 witnesses, he said, prophecy is something, he was speaking for himself, prophecy was something that I didn't see until after it came to pass, and then it kind of hit me. Well, that's what it's talking about. This is exactly it. Well, this is what scientists are saying right now, and it says scientists warn that 6 mass extinctions probably started. And what are they referring to? They're saying the fresh water's dying off, the sea life. It's dying off. Have you heard that before? Isn't that one of the plagues? Didn't Yisrayl Hawkins bring that? And remember what comes after the water. After the fresh water and the salt water comes nuclear war. Watch very carefully what they're talking about right now. There's Russian officials that are saying to the United States, if you want a nuclear war, we'll give you a nuclear war. Well, why Ukraine? Why is all of this taking place around Ukraine? Listen for the word democracy. You're going to hear the word democracy over and over and over. Don't forget what Pastor put in the first book of the Mark of the Beast, Volume 1. This government of the people, by the people, and for the people started in Egypt with the Coptic Catholics. It really doesn't benefit the people. It's let them think they have control as we control them. Yahweh says that he created mankind, man and woman, to be free moral agents to choose what they wanted to do, who they wanted to serve. But that was for a qualification. And it's very important to remember that Yahshua only came to save us from the second death. A lot of people forget that. He came to save us from the second death, that we could repent from what we've done. Well, this nuclear war that's coming, and it's going to come, we can see it. Even Senator Whitaker has made the comment that we need to go ahead and consider using nuclear weapons against Russia. If you're using nuclear weapons against a country that has more nuclear weapons than you have, they're going to retaliate. And we show a former Congresswoman, Tulsi Gabbard, she's on Fox News quite a bit, and she's talking about these things. And one interesting thing that a lot of people might not know, that was one of the last people that the 7th Malach had us contact before he went to sleep, was Tulsi Gabbard. And we sent her 3 letters concerning what she was saying about nuclear war and why it's coming, and how we can stop it if we can change the mindset, the actions, the character. If we'll work on the character and make it more positive, we can put an end to this. So watch what she's saying, and watch how worried she is. And she's even saying, you know, the people in Washington that are making these comments about nuclear weapons, these aren't people that are off to the side. These are decision makers. These are people that have authority. These are people that can actually cause this to come about. And she explains how insane that it actually is that they're considering this. And with that nuclear war facing us, and it's real, listen to how serious she takes it. She has inside information that your average person doesn't have. Listen to what she says. And then something to help you to remember this Build Back Better initiative. Something you probably never considered. In fact, I was kind of shocked when I found it through a search, and it was only because Pastor had said, keep an eye on this, watch this. And this was over a month ago, and I just seen it yesterday, going through a search that Pastor had reminded me to keep going through these things. The Build Back Better initiative. President Biden has given a speech, and it's during the menorah lighting ceremony at the White House. And what does he call to be built back better, to be built back brighter, to be built back stronger? I'm not going to tell you, but listen to what he says. Listen very carefully to what he says. Build back better. Remember that temple model we have sitting over here, and the priest that just spoke about it, and the deacon? Build back better. Well, what is he talking about, building back better? You're going to hear him say it very clearly. And remember, before any of these things come to pass, the 7th Malach, Yisrayl Hawkins, brought these things over 40 years ago. At this time, we could please go ahead and play the news.
Top headline tonight is the breathtaking rise of inflation. Consumer prices were up 7% in December compared to a year ago. That means the cost for virtually everything is on the rise. Food, gas, rent, utilities, and cars. Unfortunately, economists predict it won't be over anytime soon, with inflation remaining high throughout the year. But higher prices aren't the only problems facing consumers. Bare shelves are another problem. Supply chain shortages are hitting grocery stores on even the most basic of items. CBS's Scott McFarland is at a supermarket in Bethesda, Maryland. Good evening, Scott.
Nora, this is the sharpest rise in consumer prices in nearly 40 years, creating 2 problems for grocery shoppers. Rising prices emptying their wallets, and the store shelves emptying too.
Today's report on inflation shows ground beef prices up 13%. Double-digit jumps in the price of eggs, crackers, and bread. Breakfast cereal up 6%, and the milk you pour in it up by more than 4%. The White House today argued President Biden's Build Back Better plan, which is still stalled in Congress, would help, but acknowledged the pain isn't going away anytime soon.
If you look at the projections by independent forecasters, then you see moderation over the course of 22. In the short term, in the immediate term, I think we'll focus on the practical steps that we can take. Focus working with Congress.
Amid the Omicron wave of the pandemic, the problem isn't just the prices of items on the shelves, it's finding and stocking them. Supply chain disruptions have starved stores of staples, from the produce aisle to the paper products. At his grocery store in Washington, D.C., Roy Rodman says it's never been so difficult.
It could be a very stressful time if we weren't able to navigate or get the products, so we're triumphant in putting things on the shelf.
Food shipments have also hit a pothole. The nation's truckers tell CBS News they're operating with 80,000 fewer drivers than needed. Even a shortage in packaging items, from cardboard box adhesives to ink for product labels, could snarl production.
Does this problem of unstocked shelves in certain stores last as long as the variant does, or the pandemic does?
Yeah, it really does. And we've seen it ebb and flow with past spikes. This one's a little bit more challenging because of the transmissibility of the Omicron variant.
And it's challenging for shoppers like Dennis Stevenson.
It's disorienting, isn't it?
Yes, it's disorienting and it's frustrating.
A survey by an association for the nation's grocery stores finds 80% of them are having trouble recruiting or retaining workers. And that'll cause disruptions in the weeks ahead.
Well, tonight, a COVID vaccine reversal from Starbucks. The coffee giant won't require its 350,000 workers to be vaccinated after a Supreme Court ruling said large businesses don't need to. It is a contentious issue, especially in places where COVID cases are skyrocketing. CBS's Carter Evans reports from Missouri, a state with one of the lowest vaccination rates in the country.
Can you open your eyes for me? At St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City, Dr. Andrew Schlachter has been on the COVID front lines from the start.
Is this busier than the beginning of the pandemic?
Most certainly.
Is this busier than the beginning of the pandemic?
Most certainly. COVID has completely fractured our lives, our personal and our professional lives. Our ICUs are jam-packed. The healthcare system, I think, in general, is bedlam. Nurse Kristen Soller said she's seen so much heartbreak, and she's had enough.
It's devastating for us, and we're carrying it home with us, and we're sitting in our nursing station talking about how we're all going to need therapy for the next decade to handle this, and it didn't have to be like this.
Now, despite the massive surge in COVID cases here, Missouri's governor declared the pandemic emergency over 3 weeks ago. Now, that emergency order gave hospitals flexibility to move staff around and add beds, and without it, they say they're struggling to keep up with the rising number of patients.
Now to the latest on COVID. For the third straight day, new infections nationwide topped 800,000. For the third straight day, new infections nationwide topped 800,000 as Omicron's bullseye heads west.
Good evening to you, Nancy. Well, the surge of Omicron doesn't seem to be letting up anytime soon, at least not here in California. The number of COVID deaths in Los Angeles County hasn't been this high since April. Omicron is straining America's hospitals, with more than 21,000 COVID patients admitted every day.
They are overwhelmed right now in Kansas City. Really, since the Christmas season, we have seen incredible challenges.
Almost every American lives in a high-risk area. Florida just became the third state behind California and Texas to pass 5 million total cases. And a disturbing trend, catching Omicron on purpose. What do you tell people who say, I'm just going to get infected and get it over with?
It's a lot like playing with fire because we don't have a crystal ball that's going to tell us who's going to get a mild infection and who's going to get a more severe infection.
Dr. Nicole Van Groningen of Cedars-Sinai. Have we seen that long COVID is a risk with Omicron?
It's this lingering symptoms, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue. It's reasonable to assume that some percentage of people who get Omicron are going to develop these long COVID symptoms.
We begin with new record numbers in the pandemic. Omicron now accounts for 98% of all new cases in the United States. The CDC reporting 1.4 million new infections Monday alone, and a record 146,000 are currently hospitalized with COVID. While we may be hitting a plateau in the epicenter in New York, other areas of the world are going on lockdown as cases surge. Some areas implementing a new health tax on the unvaccinated. RT's Trinity Chavez has the latest.
Today, the Omicron variant spreading at lightning speed around the world. Nearly 60% of the global population expected to be infected with the new variant by March. Nearly 60% of the global population expected to be infected with the new variant by March. Nearly 60% of the global population expected to be infected with the new variant by March, as daily COVID-19 cases are set to hit 5 million by the end of January. Europe facing a tidal wave of Omicron infections with more than 7 million cases reported in the first week of January, more than doubling in a 2-week period. The World Health Organization issuing a stark warning, saying more than half of all Europeans could be infected by Omicron over the next couple of months. The variant also sweeping across towns and cities in China. Now 20 million Chinese residents are confined to their homes as many cities are going on lockdown ahead of the Olympics. One city aiming to test 14 million people over a 48-hour span after a cluster of 20 people tested positive, including 2 with the Omicron variant. Residents of the port city of Tianjin, where 14 million people live, are advised to stay home until they are tested. People will only be allowed to ride public transportation until after they receive a negative test. In the U.S., more than 1.4 million new COVID cases were reported in just 24 hours. The highly contagious Omicron variant now accounting for 98% of all new COVID infections. In just the last week alone, an average of 9 Americans tested positive every second. In just the last week alone, an average of 9 Americans tested positive every second. The Massachusetts governor activating more than 500 members of the National Guard, and Maine adding more than 160 members to support struggling healthcare systems. Meanwhile, at a congressional hearing about the urgent pandemic response, a heated exchange erupted between Dr. Anthony Fauci and Senator Rand Paul.
There you go again. You just do the same thing every hearing.
That was your response. And this wasn't the only time. So your desire to take down people...
You're absolutely incorrect. As usual, Senator, you are incorrect almost everything you said.
Well, no, you deny, but the emails tell the truth of this.
No.
Tensions growing following accusations that Fauci directly funded controversial research into bat coronavirus in China, which he has previously denied. Fauci firing back, accusing the senator of spreading misinformation that has led to threats against him and his family.
When I brought together a group of people to look at every possibility with an open mind. So not only are you distorting it, you are completely turning it around.
Living with coronavirus, some European countries are calling for a new approach towards COVID-19. They say it shouldn't be dealt as a health emergency, but as an illness. But does that convince anyone? After 2 years of crippling waves of coronavirus, strict lockdowns and hundreds of thousands of people dead, several European countries are hoping to treat the pandemic as a thing of the past. The latest Omicron variant wave has broken infection records across the continent. Daily infections have so far exceeded the peaks of earlier waves, with France alone reporting nearly 500,000 cases on Tuesday. But hospital admissions and deaths from Omicron infections are way down compared to previous variants. Several European countries see those figures as a sign the disease can be treated as endemic, another of many illnesses that we've learned to live with. Spain is one of the hardest hit economies on the continent and has led calls for restrictions to soon be dropped. Portugal has already eased major curbs on crowded venues, and the UK and Ireland are set to drop most restrictions over the next week. But the World Health Organization has warned the world is far from declaring the pandemic over, and the death rate is too high to treat coronavirus as another endemic disease.
Now is not the time to give up on the strategy. We're hearing a lot of people suggest that Omicron is the last variant, that it's over after this. And that is not the case, because this virus is circulating at a very intense level around the world. And so it is not the time to give up on the comprehensive strategy that we have outlined, that many countries are using. And as Mike has said, implement them in different ways. But the goals of reducing severe disease and death remain.
This pandemic is nowhere near over. And with the incredible growth of Omicron globally, new variants are likely to emerge.
All right, the man suspected in the fatal stabbing of a UCLA graduate student is now in police custody after a week-long manhunt. And it comes as the murder rate is spiking nationwide. CBS's Lilia Luciano reports.
He's going in this car.
The arrest comes just 24 hours after police released this surveillance video of the suspect, Sean Laval Smith, who they believe is responsible for the death of Brianna Kupfer. The 24-year-old was alone at work in a Los Angeles furniture store when Smith allegedly entered and stabbed her multiple times. Minutes earlier, she texted a friend saying someone at the store gave her a bad vibe. Kupfer's father condemned the seemingly random attack.
I would love to tell you that there's going to be a point where we're going to be better, but I feel like it's just going to be a big missing piece.
We will get him prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Homicides in Los Angeles jumped nearly 12% in 2021. Nationwide, there was a 20% increase in violent crime from 2019 to 2020. In Times Square last night, hundreds gathered to mourn another violent death, the murder of Michelle Go.
We have a right to feel safe in our streets and in our subways.
The 40-year-old was killed when a suspect who police say suffered from mental illness pushed her in front of an oncoming subway train Saturday morning.
Not all individuals who are struggling with mental illness are dangerous, but let's be honest, some are. And it's time to say enough.
It's a story you saw here on RT earlier this week. We're talking about the 57-year-old Maryland man who was a recent recipient of the first ever pig heart transplant. His name is David Bennett, and since this story went viral, the internet did their thing and, of course, did some digging. What they found, pretty shocking. According to the Washington Post, back in 1988, Bennett was actually convicted of stabbing another man while at a bar. Now, the man that survived that attack that was stabbed, he did survive, but he's living the rest of his life confined to a wheelchair. Bennett was 23 when this all went down, and he was sentenced to 10 years in jail for that crime. Now, the victim's family is now arguing that Bennett should have never been chosen for the transplant and that they were more than 100,000 Americans who were more deserving of that.
And talking about wrong messaging, Russia is escalating tensions with Europe. After sending 100,000 troops to the Ukraine border, Moscow has issued a new threat. It believes that NATO could ramp up its deployments in Ukraine, so Russia has threatened to respond with nuclear missiles. Is Vladimir Putin pushing the world towards the brink of a nuclear war?
Russia is playing a dangerous game in Europe. It has raised tensions with a massive buildup in Ukraine. Now it is threatening the Europeans with nuclear weapons. A senior Russian diplomat has issued a warning. He says Russia could deploy intermediate-range nuclear missiles against Europe. Moscow believes NATO wants to deploy its own missiles to target Russia, so it feels the need to respond. Europe is taking the Russian threat seriously. On Monday, the European Union went into a huddle. The bloc is mulling a fresh round of sanctions against Russia. Europe's top diplomat is determined to send a strong message to Moscow.
We are on the turn mode, on the dissuasion mode, in order to put the crisis to start. But in any case, we will send a clear signal that any aggression against Ukraine will have a high cost for Russia if this happens. But now we are trying to do our best in order to prevent this from happening.
US President Biden backs more sanctions against Russia. He spoke to the Russian president last week. Washington, too, remains committed to supporting Ukraine. But Biden has refused to send American troops if a war does break out. The American president believes he can rein in Putin without boots on the ground.
Here's the deal. I've made it absolutely clear to President Putin, it's the last thing I'll say, that if he moves on Ukraine, the economic consequences for his economy are going to be devastating. Devastating.
Tulsi Gabbard has thought a lot about this, of course, a former congresswoman from Hawaii, currently lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves. She joins us tonight. Congresswoman, thanks so much for coming on. Does what's happening in eastern Ukraine, whatever you think of it, constitute a core American interest, do you believe?
No. Look at what Senator Wicker is saying. I want to go back to that for a second here, because anyone who would propose or even consider what he is saying as an option must be insane, a sociopath, or a sadist. Because let's just understand here. So he's saying, let's go and launch a nuclear attack that would start a war. Let's just understand here. So he's saying, let's go and launch a nuclear attack that would start a war. Let's just understand here. So he's saying, let's go and launch a nuclear attack that would start a war that would destroy the American people, our country, and the world, and also the Ukrainians, so that we can save Ukraine's democracy, so that we can save Ukraine's democracy. so that we can save Ukraine's democracy? I mean, it literally is insane. And the crazy thing, Tucker, is Senator Wicker is not an outlier. He's the #2 Republican on the Armed Services Committee. And you're hearing the same kind of rhetoric coming from Democrats and Republicans in Congress, in the administration, and in the media, who have no problem with this because they actually agree with it. They're pushing this same narrative themselves. And this is why it is such a dangerous situation that we are facing as we are being pushed closer and closer very quickly, as you said, to a hot war, a nuclear war that would destroy the world as we know it. That we are facing as we are being pushed closer and closer very quickly, as you said, to a hot war, a nuclear war that would destroy the world as we know it.
Over eastern Ukraine. I mean, the sad thing is in Washington, I mean, you served in the Congress. People like Roger Wicker are considered highly informed intellectuals. You know, America deserves better than Roger Wicker, I think it's fair to say. But they live in an airless world where they repeat back to one another, both parties, the same stupid talking points. Do they know how disconnected from reality this is?
Unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be the case. And this is just points to their ineptness, their lack of a capability to really clearly see what the consequences are of their rhetoric, of what the actions. And this isn't just, empty words. There are consequences to leaders in our country, influential people in our country, to throwing things out like a first-use nuclear attack is on the table. This directly undermines our national security. It directly puts the American people and our country and the world at risk, Tucker. And what are we trying to accomplish here? Because that will be the result.
Why eastern Ukraine? I mean, you can think of lots of parts of the world that are critical to our national interests. The shipping lanes in the South China Sea, for example, or lots of things. You could argue we have to defend this. But Ukraine? What? We've been talking about Ukraine for years. What is this?
The thing that I see here, Tucker, that is the same neocons and neolibs in Washington who dragged our country into regime change wars in places like Iraq and Libya and Syria, the same ones who are pushing us very quickly into this war with Russia and never stating once, hey, what's our objective? What are we trying to accomplish here? And how does it serve our country's national security interests?
Exactly.
Not a single one of them are pointing that out.
This is not some Stone Age land in South Asia. This is a real country with nuclear weapons and an actual army. Like these,
exactly,
is too crazy.
And by the way, they have more nuclear weapons than we do. So thinking you're just going to launch a nuclear attack and not see a consequence that will lead to a nuclear war that destroys the world is, again, insane, inept, and I don't know how many more words we can use to describe it. It's ridiculous, and these people should not be in positions of power to make these decisions.
On the fourth night of Hanukkah, U.S. President Joe Biden hosted the White House's annual menorah lighting ceremony and shockingly referred to the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. This coming on the same day the UN General Assembly termed the Temple Mount solely a Muslim site. During his speech, Biden showed historical knowledge referring to the story of Hanukkah and the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 A.D. He seemed optimistic that a third temple might be rebuilt and linked it to his Build Back Better plan, saying, whether it's the Temple of Jerusalem or the Temple of our democracy, nothing broken or profaned is beyond repair. Nothing. We can always build back better.
US President Joe Biden hosted the White House annual menorah lighting ceremony on the fourth night of Hanukkah on Wednesday. During his speech, Biden referenced the story of Hanukkah and the destruction of the Second Temple. Biden compared the Holy Temple to the, quote, temple of our democracy. Really? That's very interesting. The comparison struck many as ironic since democracy is a Greek concept. Later on in his speech, the US president seemed to be optimistic that the third temple will be rebuilt, saying, quote, whether it's in the temple of Jerusalem or a temple of our democracy, nothing broken or profaned is beyond repair. Nothing. We can always build back better or perhaps build back brighter.
A little bit of light, wherever it is found, can dispel the darkness and illuminate a path forward. Whether it's in the temple of Jerusalem or a temple of our democracy. Whether it's in the temple of Jerusalem or a temple of our democracy. Whether it's in the temple of Jerusalem or a temple of our democracy. Nothing broken or profaned is beyond repair. Nothing. We can always build back better, or perhaps build back brighter.
You know, it's really awesome in these last days, if everyone will go ahead and stand, to see these prophecies coming to pass. And Pastor said one time, not believing it won't stop it from taking place. The important part is to see it, and especially for those who are watching internationally, overseas, or even here in the United States, and you might not have heard this message very much, or you're having troubles thinking that that one man literally is a prophet, that one man is literally Yahweh's last day's witness. Listen to what he says and let his words speak for themselves, and the body of believers here will never allow his body to be put into the grave. Praise Yahweh. Now, the sermon that is going to be given or played today was first given on the 11th Roman month, the 14th day of 2015. It was entitled, Excitement and Joy of Being in the House of Yahweh, Watching the Prophecies Come to Pass. And at this time, I would like to introduce the greatest teacher in the world, the great Kahan Yisrayl, Abel Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone! Hey, you're looking great. Come on. That's why you hear them, y'all. Praise Yahweh. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. After seeing that news, you've got to be the most joyous people on the face of the earth, right? Wow. We're sitting here with a bird's eye view, and Yahweh said, you will see it. And of course, we are seeing it. I should show you what we're doing first here, I guess. That got big attention. Right there. We released 2 this week. Yisrayl Hawkins makes formal plea to all world leaders to in effort to push world peace in new post this week. I see that really took off with a bang. 60,000 in just a few hours, and a potential of 201 million. Right. Yisrayl Hawkins proclaims the house of Yahweh is fulfilling biblical prophecy and offers proof. That is over 132,000 now. And open letter to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that's the one you're looking at here, is over 113,000. And we turned out another one this week that I was so amazed by it. A plea to all world leaders. Yisrayl Hawkins makes plea to all world leaders in effort to push world peace in new post this week. 10,941,421. Big ones, big stations too. Really great what Yahweh is doing to show this to not only his house, but the world leaders. And you can tell from what some of the world leaders say that they're up on what we're speaking here. I got a map here for you that now this one shows France, which is right here. If you can, let me see if I can get that a little bit closer. I don't want to get it too close. I want you to see the river Euphrates. It's right here going up through Iraq. So this is the 4th part of the earth now. That put down your phones and look at this. Everybody really pay attention to this. Put down every phone. Don't turn the thing off if you have to. But pay attention to what I'm saying. You really need this right here. Them phones, they'll bug you. They bug everybody around you. In fact, if you see someone using him, nudge him and say, hey, Israel is trying to get your attention. Turn the thing off. And surely you can do without it till I get through speaking, right? Praise Yahweh. France, right there. Here's the great river Euphrates. That fourth part of the earth is exactly what Revelations 9 shows you there, and we'll read that in just a moment. And this, of course, is where Yahweh shows the great number of people are going to be slaughtered there, and that is exactly what's taking place. One of the things that's shown is the oil that they're fighting over. Each one of those little square boxes, if you can see them, I got some of them circled, the states, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Egypt, all of these in that fourth part of the earth. But every one of these little square boxes here that you see them everywhere. They're dotted all over this. It's an oil program that's taking place that they're trying to protect there. Hurt not the oil and the wine. Well, these oil programs, of course, are being pulled away by Russia and China. That is, they're in attempt to stop using the petrodollar. That's the United States. That's what keeps the United States strong and healthy, and the greatest builder of weapons on earth. If the United States hadn't been planned like Yahweh planned it to begin with, and at a distance is safety. That's what I told you about the earth itself. If Satan and the beings out there, some of them who are the gods that's leading these world leaders into war and retaliation, that's what you see right here in this thing with France and the Vatican saying this needs direct global action, and of course they mean killing, retaliation, vengeance, and that's what they've been teaching all along since the days of Cain, and that's what we're seeing here right now, and the world is falling. It's not getting any better. If this could have made it better, Cain would have been living high on the hog, right? That's okie talk, but that's that's the way it is. It's not going to get better. It's going to keep getting worse, as Yahweh says, till 1/3 of the people are dead over that fourth part of the earth right there, and it gives you the exact. How would Yahweh know that? How would a prophet, Yochanan, who recorded this, how would he know that? Wake up, wake up. Yahweh is talking to you. He's actually showing that to you. He's revealing these secrets, that they're secret plans. Yahweh is to you right now to show you what sin brings. That's one thing. I'm sorry to say that some telephones are bringing it, and I'm going to pronounce a curse on them if you don't start governing these things properly. You're already cursed with it. Some of you are already cursed with them. When you get to where you can't lay something down, like a bottle of wine or a telephone, you need to stomp that thing. Get rid of it. When it takes the place of your learning, just seeing what Yahweh has here for you, you can't study it too much. Someone said he brought a sermon about being bored. I don't see how anyone could be bored in the house of Yahweh. We have a garden, the Garden of Eden, Yahweh put here. Remember that? Chapter 2 of Genesis? He planted a garden for voluptuous living, and we got it right here. If you're bored, go to the office. We have every kind of class you could think of going on here. If we don't, we'll create it. The women, that teach cooking, I was so amazed. The Filipino dinner, does anyone remember that last week, or did your telephone keep you from enjoying it? You know, if you put them things away and concentrate on that bite of food, you would see how joyous life can be. That Filipino dinner I'm talking about last week. You know how long it took me to teach them to make that meal? It don't take long. I can teach you in just a little bit. And you'll be some great cooks like they are on Filipino food. Or Spanish or Tex-Mexican or whatever. We got it right here. Right here. Not only that, we can take you, you know, you can become food smart, you know. You can plant seed. We'll teach you how to plant seed, both men and women. Teach you how to plant seed, raise your food, and taste it. You know, some people have to be taught to enjoy anything, you know, because they got distractions that Satan puts out there. That's your problem. Don't let her distract you. Pay attention to what Yahweh has offered you here and what he's showing you right now, what the world is going to be, what the world can be in the future, and how Satan is trying to wreck it right now. And you want to be a part of it with a stupid telephone to take its place? You got to be the biggest nut on the face of the earth. Oh, boy. Anyway, that's enough of that. I hope. Remember Daniel. Daniel 12:4, knowledge increased. Now, Yahweh knew this. He showed it to you big time. He didn't show it to anyone else. We're the first ones to bring this out. Knowledge will be increased, he said, in that time period. And then Daniel explained in that time period, this is going to be the greatest trouble on the face of the earth. The greatest time of trouble, he said. Now, surely you could put those two together. The greatest time of trouble, that knowledge will be increased, that Yahshua showed would actually invent the nuclear bomb that could darken the sun. There's no way you can top that right there. There's no way you can get around seeing it unless your mind is so clogged with sin that you can't even hear words coming through your ears. There's no way you can deny it. The world is going to have an increase in knowledge. It's going to bring forth the greatest time of trouble ever. That's in Daniel 12. Yahshua said in Matthew 24, it's going to bring forth bombs that can darken the sun. At a time when there wasn't even a firecracker. Isaiah talked about the great hail that's going to wipe out the human race because of sin. Hail. Of course, that word don't mean hail. It means hail, okay, but it also means rifle fire. Did you know that? It means bombs going off. It means destruction. And that's what we're seeing the first taste of here in that fourth part of the earth, and it's really getting worse. And you notice they're threatening each other now with the nuclear wars. The Catholic Church is saying, you know, this is insane. I've told the Pope he's insane for years. I've been telling the Vatican that for years, and now they're waking up and say, oh, yeah, this is insane. I'm glad you're admitting it. Well, here's Italy, and connects you a little closer to France there, where you can see the two, Italy and France. The wars that, if you'll turn over to Revelations and keep in mind, Revelations 9, keep in mind the increase in knowledge that brings this about. Now, when the knowledge was increased, it would have taken sailboats how long to get from the United States, what is the United States now, and across the ocean? How long would it take them? Well, Columbus has a number of days. It's humongous. They even got lost at sea. back in the time this was written. Yeah, 1492, when before that now the prophets was talking about this Babylonian land that wasn't established yet. And he said that's where the house of Yahweh is going to be. Nobody understood it. They didn't know. Daniel didn't understand his prophecy. We're the only ones now because Yahweh said we would. We would understand this. And he opened it and Daniel says, look, here's two people that I can ask what the end is going to be. And he told you that right there in that same chapter. He said, I looked and I saw two others and I asked the one in linen. And he answered. The one in linen answered Daniel in a vision. How can you top that? Are you so stupid you can't even see that? I'm talking to the world, of course. I'm not talking to you. Well, here in Revelations, we see what Daniel was speaking of. Revelations 9, if you go back to chapter 7, you'll see where these are held back by the two witnesses. By one of the two witnesses, he asked that they be held back until numbers was found. And of course, we're finding those numbers now. Where people are calling in, like, you know where Denmark is? How many knows where Denmark is? Oh, great. Praise Yahweh. We got an order from one man for 5 books of Yahweh. And that's just a drop in the bucket to what we're getting and what we're going to get. But we see that we are reaching these people. And when I started mentioning the book of Yahweh in the articles, before that we were getting very few orders, and now the orders are increasing big time. Well, this fourth part of the earth now, that is where the great time of trouble was not shown by Daniel, but it's shown here in Revelations. And he named it. He named it. Showed you actually where it's going to be. Around the great river Euphrates, in that fourth part of the earth. In and around the great river Euphrates. How could you be any more precise than that fourth part of the earth in and around the great river Euphrates? Why isn't it occurring here, happening here in America right now? Because Yahweh has protection for his house. And if he didn't protect this setup that he has here, the computer systems that reach all over the world, if he didn't protect it, how would you reach out with this? We would be as helpless as the disciples were back before any of this was invented. And this went on until knowledge was increased. It had to be increased for Yahweh's work to be done. There's no way that the world could be reached by a person standing on a soapbox somewhere, standing out in the street hollering. You're not going to reach very many people. So Yahweh had to do this. You see what a magnificent thing you're looking at here? And you're included in that, every one of you. That should far surpass any joy that the world has to offer, the fake joys. The world has nothing but fake joys to offer. Things that hurt, that bite back, that kill. Like 60% of the people have one disease, 75% have another one, and another one, and another one. It's all over the world right now. That's the joy that they're suffering. And believe me, they're suffering. Right now, you're very much honored, brethren, to be in a protected place, and Yahweh is going to protect it. Right now, he's protecting the whole United States because of his work. That's right. He's protecting the whole United States, and he says the United States is going to stay strong. And I brought you this years ago. It's in the Mark of the Beast. I wrote it back in the 70s, that the United States will remain strong until the very end, but it is going to be hit. And it's going to be hit hard. Not just the Twin Towers, but big time. And it even shows where they're going to get hit first. You need that book. You need to read it. You'd be a lot better off reading that than you would be playing with a telephone. In Daniel 12, Daniel saw the greatest time of trouble ever. He even saw people being resurrected. He saw your kinfolks being resurrected. Let me put it that way. Put it a little more personally. You know, Yahweh knew your kinfolks. He called you. He had to know them. He knew the whole bloodline. He knows a sparrow. When a sparrow falls to the ground, he knows it. Nothing gets by Yahweh. That's the kind of mind this being has. And he can tell you everything that's going to take place minute by minute by minute. How many hairs are on your head minute by minute by minute? He'd have to know that one fell off and laying on the table there in front of you. To know how many hairs you have on your head all the time. And he knows that with every one of us. Now, he inspired Daniel to see this. He actually opened Daniel's mind. Daniel didn't understand it, though. And he cried. He wept because this was hidden from him. I would, too, if it was taken from me. And I want to show it to everyone in the world, and I want you to be part of it. Praise Yahweh. Well, Daniel saw the greatest time of trouble ever. He saw us resurrecting the dead. You know, that was all put there so that you would understand that this is going to be in the time of the two witnesses. Daniel 12, the whole thing was written for the time of the two witnesses. And Daniel was shown the two witnesses. And he was allowed to speak to one, and that one could answer his questions, and then he had to close the book, and it had to be sealed until the time of the end. And Yahweh brought about all kinds of things to make sure that it was sealed till the time of the end. The temple was destroyed, the book of Yahweh taken to Rome. It was locked up. No one could look at it. No one could print it. No one could get it out to the people. No one could read it. And they went around arresting everyone they could find that had copies of it. Or even if they had a menorah, even if they didn't eat pork, which it says in Leviticus, don't eat pork. Leviticus 11, don't eat the pig, it's unclean, he said. If you didn't eat pig, they would arrest you, take all your property, take your children away from you, and kill you. That time is over. Yahweh is protecting his people. He's hovering over his house, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it this time. Otherwise, they would have already. They tried to stop this work. It can't be stopped. Yahweh said it will never be stopped again. We are the ones that Daniel saw that is going to resurrect the dead. Some of those dead are going to be resurrected to life and joy in the garden. You don't know what a joy it is to get out in the garden and raise food. It's a bigger joy. It's a bigger joy to raise people. And people that I can present to Yahweh as 100% pure in heart and 100% in unity with him. That's what you've got to be. Otherwise, you're going to be resurrected to shame and contempt. And that's what Daniel showed in Daniel 12. Some will be resurrected, but only to suffer shame, contempt, and of course the lake of fire. You can make your choice. You know, this is your choice. It's put before you from the beginning. But you better not let anyone stop you. You know, I've seen people raise a family. I've lived a long time, seemed like 1,000 years. I've seen people get married. They have children, and oh, how they love those children. Those children were so grand when they was changing their diapers. When they got big enough that that wasn't taking place and they had a mind of their own, the parents wanted to forsake them. Yeah, I've seen it done. Seen them walk off, leave them. Just leave the house and leave the children. And they're found days later because someone called the police because they can't see any activity at the house. They couldn't stand life that they'd created inside that house. This is the world for you. Well, here in Revelations, we get a taste of what Satan's world is like and what she's going to make out of it, what she has the power to do. And Yahweh said, I'm not going to restrain, not going to keep anything back from you. You're going to go the limit. I'm only going to save 1/5 of the earth's population alive. The prophet Isaiah said, few men left. It's going to be burned, and few men left. Burned. I remember when I was a very young boy, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, but I remember that subject being one of the subjects in my house where we were gathered around a small table, and some of us standing and some sitting. But that subject was talked about when the Bible was being read by lamplight, no electricity at that time. All of that has come along in my lifetime. Knowledge was increased. That's the reason we have all of this right here. These wonderful things that Yahweh made possible for his house in these last days. And I'm speaking here. I'm being heard in Denmark. I'm being heard all over the world at this time. I say I mean we, all of us. We're being heard. Our voices are being heard all over the world. And it's being repeated by world leaders. Brother, we see it every day. People call me and say, did you hear what Putin said? Well, yeah, they're voicing what I say. Let's go back to Daniel before we read this in Revelations and make this much more clearer. In Daniel 12, and you need the New Translation. Now, that's one of the things you can look up on your telephone that'd make it worthwhile for you to own one of them things. Yeah, you can actually look up Israel Says on this, and you'll get the New Translation of this right here, the first few verses. At that time, I saw 2 witnesses. If you could read it like that, put it in front of everything you see there. At that time, I, Daniel, verse 5, I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there were 2 others. At that time, first 3-4 words in verse 1. At that time, and put it in front of every one of those things. And you'll see the answers that Daniel got but didn't understand, of course. And nobody can understand it today except you who have it explained to you by, at that time, Daniel shows you which one can answer your question even. You see that? I saw 2, but I talked to one and he answered me. At that time, at this time of great trouble. Look at all the stuff you see in that. You could examine this chapter, and I bet you for a year, and you'd still be seeing new things that you didn't see when you first read it. At that time, will Michael stand up? Yes, that's a mistranslation. And then at that time, a time of trouble will be such as never was since there was a nation to the same time. Now, there can't be 2 times of trouble, and each one of them the greatest. So if you look at Matthew 24 and in verse 21, for then will be great tribulation, then. If you look back to verse 14, you'll see the 2 that Daniel saw. and a work going on there that is reaching the entire world, all nations. As I speak here, I'm heard in Denmark. I'm also heard on the boats now out in the ocean, the warships. Yes, they're hearing me too. They have capability of it. At that time, the greatest time of trouble ever, verse 21 and 22. And at that time, immediately, but after the tribulation, which means this is it, in this time period when the message is being preached, verse 14, when the message is being preached, at that time, great tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened. At that time. You're in that time right now. Praise Yahweh, you're here. Back to Daniel. And at that time, verse 1, at that time, your people will be delivered. You remember Daniel was a righteous person. He really cared for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he prayed and he wondered and he moaned and he groaned because of what they were doing. And he saw how they were going bad. And of course, chapter 8, if you remember, I think I preached a few sermons on that chapter 8. In 9, Yahweh said, this is how it's going to be. And then he showed him some things in chapter 9 that was going to take place with this 12 tribes of Israel. And then this is the last part right here. But he showed how he is going to straighten this mess out. And it's all recorded right here in the book of Daniel. But it's recorded, everything is supposed to come to the finish, come to Yahweh's righteousness at the time of those two witnesses that he sees here. In that generation, and Yahshua actually called it that generation in chapter 24. In verse 32, he says, now learn a parable of from the fig tree. When its branches become tender, put forth the leaves, you will know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, know that his coming is coming, and we've added some words there, end of the age and so forth, is near at the very door. At that time, when the message is being preached, verse 14, you're going to know this right there. It's at the very door right now. Right now, they're calling for an all-out war against Russia and China. Now, this is a big step, and this is something that the other nations that we have attacked so far and taken over, you know, Afghanistan, you remember when Georgia, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, we were there. The Minister of Education in Georgia told us, we want this in all three of these countries. We want to fix it up. We'll fix it up and have a certain date where you can come here and teach the teachers in these three countries. All of them will hear this class, the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. If that had taken place at that time, the rest of this wouldn't be taking place. And Yahweh is allowing this plan of Satan, the plan of following Satan, the plan of the Vatican to be fulfilled. He's going to show them in no uncertain terms what sin brings. If you remember, he told Moshe, if you will diligently listen, diligently listen, that's the first part, to everything that the one sent, as Yahshua said, teaches. You can't go somewhere else to get it. It's got to be the one sent. Daniel shows you the one sent is going to be in this time period. Yahshua showed it too. Yeah, we're it. We're the ones sent, brethren. We're the ones that's making this heard in Denmark and every country on earth. Well, Matthew 24, the Savior shows that the one that Daniel saw, dressed in linen, is going to be taking this to all nations at the time that this greatest time of trouble ever is in progress. And we see it. I mean, we're seeing it right now. The news is full of it. You can't get away from it now. If you watch the news, you're going to see it. They shut down some of their main shows yesterday to show what took place in France. And they started out with 3 different bombings. They wound up with 7, I believe, 7 or 8 now this morning on this great killing that took place. And it was planned. It was all simultaneous, so it was planned and well executed. We don't know who did it. We don't know who trained these men, who paid them, who furnished their weapons. Was it Russia? Was it China? Was it the United States? Was it the Vatican? Was it NATO? Who was it? Well, we don't know. They had weapons from the United States, some from Russia, some from... What does that mean? Oh, I don't know. Scratching your head. We'll find out, baby. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Their days are numbered. Those are the big, bright words that I heard from the television yesterday. Their days are numbered. And the Pope says it's inhumane. It's insane. You're crazy. He is speaking to the Vatican. Well, anyway, here we are seeing it right now, exactly what Psalms 91 said. Psalms 91 said, you're going to see this. Now, how could you see it if you were one of the 12 disciples? Or Isaiah, or Daniel? How could you see it? He says you're going to see them fall at your right hand. That was it. That's Psalms 91. You, who is you? You. He says those who have Yahweh's shadow. Well, what in the world is Yahweh's shadow? Colossians? Colossians says the shadow of Yahweh is your protection over this protected place. Protection where? At the protected place, Yeremia. Yahweh says, I'm going to, 23, Yeremia 23. He says, I'm going to hover over you and take care of my house. And Yahshua said, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. You should believe that, brethren. You see the knowledge increase. You see everything here that I've mentioned. It was all prophesied for us and thousands of pieces more. It's a wonderful thing to be in the house of Yahweh. It's a most wonderful thing on earth. But you can't get enough of it. You can't get too much study. You can't get too much reading. If I had to go from here to town, if I had to, I would want to learn on the way. If I could, I'd have someone reading to me. I don't want to be without something to read for 1 minute. That's when I would get bored. You know, that's the only thing that would bore me is when I when I had to stop learning. That would be boring. You need to put in as much time and study as you possibly can. Don't let it interfere with your work, of course. Do that with all your might, as Yahweh has said, and you will find joy in it. He said, if you'll do this, you'll find joy. That's what he tells you in the 12th chapter of Deuteronomy. If you'll just read that carefully, you'll see that he's teaching you how to have joy, real, true joy, without hurting someone around you, without hurting yourself, without catching an STD that'll knock your eyes out. Do you know syphilis is on the rise? 60%, 67% now have syphilis in the world. Syphilis makes you go blind, makes your brain go blind too. It attacks your brain. You're so dumb you can't even understand what I'm saying. That's syphilis. That's what it'll do for you. Almost as bad as marijuana. May Yahweh bless you, and I'll turn the services back to the next leader. I love you!
One quick announcement. Masks or veils are required at all times when you're in the sanctuary. Parents, please encourage your children who are attending classes to bring and wear their masks or veils as well. We want everyone to stay healthy. Please raise your hands. Our Father in heaven, whose name alone is Yahweh, this is Deacon Abadia, coming before you, being under my head, Deacon Remia, who's under the body of Khans, pointing you to the pastor, Yisrayl Labor Hawkins, who's into the authority of our high priest and our soon coming King, Yahshua Messiah. We come before you in this great Sabbath day, Yahweh. We thank you for the knowledge that we received from all the speakers. We pray that you bless us with wisdom and with the wisdom and understanding to know that it's us who need to adjust our lives to your reflection, the standard of perfection, the high priest Yahshua Messiah. We pray that you help us to be more ready to listen than to talk. We pray that you bless your house with a true joy instead of the fake joy that's being offered by the world. We pray that you help us to stand strong in our place as we see the prophecies coming to pass. We pray that your saints and the workers are provided with everything they need. We ask all these things through the name of Yahshua Messiah. Hallelujah. Praise God.